Now, a familiar story for fans of English football.
Oh, yes.
The women's team were drawing with France at the end of extra time in their World Cup quarter-final this weekend, and guess what?
They were knocked out.
They were, on penalties.
We'll try to get to the bottom of England's penalty phobia. It's only been going on for about 25 years. First, here's what some of you thought about it.
I think it's a total lack of confidence. Year after year after year, you're always thinking back to what happened in the last tournament.
I think they've missed so many now that it's just become embedded in their sort of psychology, and it's almost become acceptable to miss penalties.
And she's put it wide, and we're level.
I don't think it's just penalties. Penalties might be the final sort of manifestation of that lack of confidence.
I think it is a mental thing. You just kind of need to be very fixed in where you want to go, and if the goalkeeper guesses right and he makes a good save, there's not much you can do.
Arsenal's Faye White has hit the crossbar. It's all over for England on penalties once again.
She hit it hard enough.
She did.
She hit it hard enough.
Yeah, just hit the crossbar. Very painful viewing if you're watching and you're an England player this morning. Sorry about that. Joining us is James Beale, a sports psychologist, and Alison Rudd, who's a sports writer for The Times. Welcome to you both. Thank you very much for joining us. So, as a sports psychologist, you must have seen this many times before. What happened? Was it a mental thing?
I'm not sure if it was a mental thing as such. I mean, we're not sure of the preparation that the England ladies football team were doing beforehand. It would be interesting to know whether they practice penalties. There's a cultural norm within football that you can't practice penalties, but I think we would challenge that as a sports psychologist. From the point of view of in every other sphere, you practice what you do. So a golfer would practice their final putt. The rugby players would practice their kicks.
Okay. So do it a lot, in other words?
Do it a lot, in other words. There's no point going in to do something if you've not practiced it beforehand.
What is the success rate, Alison, of England teams in penalty shootouts? I think it's one
in 6 attempts.
1 in 6.
Starting in 1990.
Could we say there's a culture of failure here, possibly? I don't know. I mean, is it the weight of history on every player's back? They think, oh, here we go, England penalty shootout, we're going to lose.
Well, I think, I mean, it sounds grandiose, but I think that's true. I mean, once you have a high profile, I mean, in 1990, England were on the verge of reaching a World Cup final. Penalties, they go horribly wrong. So obviously, the next time you're in a big penalty situation, you're going to have a memory of what happened before, which makes it doubly difficult to get your act together and not be nervous, to do the right thing, and so it perpetuates.
Do England teams practice penalties as much as teams from other nations?
No, they don't.
They don't?
No, they don't.
Why not?
Well, if you talk to managers, they get quite defensive about it, actually, and they say there's no point because you cannot replicate the pressure situation. You cannot replicate a stadium full of 80,000 people all screaming. I mean, depending on what goal you're shooting at, there are people trying to put you off or people looking stressed. They say there's no point practicing because you can't replicate that. My view would be, if you practice, and I think you agree, if you practice a lot, you can be so confident that you don't care about the other things that are going on. I mean, the Germans practice a lot. So when they take penalties, they look clinical. They're clinical because they know they're good. Yeah. They know they're good.
But should they also be looking at the psychology of it, you know, beforehand, saying, look, if you get yourself in this situation, this is what you want to do? Because it seemed nobody put their hand up to take a penalty.
I think what happens is that when you're in a pressurised situations, your normal way of doing things sometimes goes out the window. So perhaps your pre-performance routines, the things that you would do time after time after time, actually at those points you forget about those things, and therefore things go wrong.
We've had lots of emails, as you might expect, on this. Anyone who's never watched the England game shouldn't comment. The girls played a fantastic game. A credit to England. I mean, they were doing extraordinarily well, weren't they? And then France ended up equalising. Was that the moment when you think?
England did well considering. I think France, I mean, they went through and they were right to go through. They played the better football. They had more chances on goal. The key to France's success was, I mean, obviously there was a penalty shootout, but the key to the fact that most people thought they should have gone through was they had pace and youth. They looked like a team on the up, whereas England women looks a bit like a team who was cobbled together a little bit, maybe a little on the old side. So maybe this will create a revolution and we'll have more young girls coming through.
I think I'd add to that the momentum was with France. They scored in the 88th minute, so at the start of extra time, the England ladies would have been thinking to themselves, right, this should be over now. We should be in the dressing room in the next round of the World Cup, and they weren't. So basically, the French had the momentum, and I think they went forward, and it showed in the extra time and the penalties.
So there was optimism when they were from France when they were taking their penalties.
I think
a very
so,
different
yeah.
state of mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Alison, you've taken a penalty before?
Yes, I have, and it is horrible. I mean, it's dreadful. You suddenly feel like you've got lead in your boots and you doubt yourself. It's a very simple thing, taking a penalty kick. You've got one person trying to stop you get it in the goal. Why should that be so complicated?
Where were you? Were you the first or?
No, it wasn't a shootout. It was just a penalty in a match.
Penalty.
In the sense that I won the penalty. Oh, okay, you can take it. And you want to say, no, I don't want to, really.
And what happened?
We look like a wimp. Oh, I've scored them and I've missed them.
Of course you did. The main thing, you've got to get it on target. That's the main. I mean, the really unforgivable error is to miss the target. You've got to get it on target. Otherwise, you've got no chance.
That's absolutely
Would you say?
right.
Well, absolutely.
Having said that, I can't remember ever taking a penalty. So there you go.
I remember watching my son taking a penalty. Oh, it's absolutely ghastly. I mean,
it churns you up.
It completely churns you up, doesn't it? Thank you very much, both of you, for coming in, and thank you for all your thoughts this morning.
Did
as
he
well.
score?
Yeah.
That's right.
But I was more stressed than he was. Absolutely.
Somehow that doesn't surprise me. Coming up, the